Ooh, I like her.
The trope of the spicy Latina woman is one that has persisted throughout the history of entertainment and in Hollywood. Latina women are often portrayed as spicy temptresses and the object of affection to their white male saviors.
I'm surprised you're staying to hear me sing.
Oh, I can stand anything for this. I could eat my weight in hot tamales.
The origins of the spicy Latina stereotype date back to the Mexican-American War and the efforts to manipulate and destabilize Latinas. In an article for Everyday Feminism, Catherine Garcia writes that the blurring of Mexican identity and experiences allowed room for the formation of these stereotypes, like the spicy Latina, that continue to group all Latin American people together to this day. Vaudeville and dance hall shows of the mid-1800s after the Mexican-American War took a hold of these ideologies. The first notable depiction of the spicy Latina character can be seen in the opera Carmen, which is still performed today. In it, a soldier named Don Jose arrests a woman named Carmen, who spends the duration of the show trying to entice and seduce him. When Don loses his job after giving in to her seduction, Carmen abandons him and he begs for her affections. When she refuses, Don murders her. By 1920, the stereotype had defined itself and taken hold in Hollywood films, where it was perpetuated further.
Will you guys stop doing that?
Latina women were defined as a fantasy, a spicy temptress, or something that men could experience for a night, but not something they wanted to keep around. She was exciting and exotic, and something that would lead men away from their otherwise vanilla lives. Rivera writes that the name comes from the idea that loving them is painful yet pleasurable, like eating a spicy pepper. Early portrayals of Latino men in film were dangerous, dim-witted criminals and greasers. Early depictions of Latina women were often cartoonish and exotic. An example of the cartoonization of Latina women can be seen in the early Chiquita banana commercials.
No, not yet, my dear. That greenish way you're looking means that you are ripe for cooking.
How about me?
No. When you are fully ripe, my dear, those little flecks of brown appear.
The depiction like this further pushes the narrative of Latina women as objects of lust and temptation, but not of real substance or value. Her attitude is considered combative and tempestuous. One of the early pioneers of this role was Lupe Velez. Velez grew up during the revolution in Mexico and was subjected to extreme violence as the child of an army soldier. Lupe Velez developed a hard attitude and fast temper in her personal life. Movie studios and the press were looking for a scapegoat that they could pinpoint to in justifying their racist depictions of Latina women. Lupe often went to bat with the press on how they portrayed her. A famous headline about Velez that ran in the 1920s was, "When she puckers her lips, it's impossible to tell if she's going to kiss, bite, or spit on you." Velez's story is one of caution about what can happen when the media starts to blur the line between a character portrayal and the person playing them. Lupe was treated as a commodity that could be discarded when no longer useful, as were other actresses in this trope. After years of playing the stereotype and being forced to act on and off screen like her characters, she became one herself after a series of violent incidents with her husband that led to her arrest and suicide at the age of 37.
And you still don't know. He is one of them! No, Anita. Yes!
This stereotype has been defined several times since its early depictions. In the 1960s, Anita from West Side Story, played by Rita Moreno, redefined this stereotype with a different tone. Anita's character was spicy in attitude, rather than being hypersexual. She used her sharp tongue and wit to lure in her men. In the 1980s, it was redefined again as a tough Latin woman who refused to take any grief from a man. She often came from a rough neighborhood that toughened her up and allowed her to go head-to-head with the men.
Hey, Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
Oh, Vasquez. You're just too bad.
An example of this stereotype exists in the movie Aliens with Professor Jeanette Vasquez. Vasquez's first scene is of her doing pull-ups on a bar with the men, and she spends the rest of the movie wielding big weapons and looking tough. A common device used among this stereotype is a fiery attitude with frequent outbursts in Spanish. Often something other characters will make fun of, Sofia Vergara in Modern Family often has trouble pronouncing her words and is laughed at.
Okay, enough! You try speaking in another language. Everybody out of my house!
Although in recent television, Latina women have gotten a few positive representations in shows such as Ugly Betty and Jane the Virgin, the repercussions of the stereotype go far beyond simple movie depictions. They've led to an influx of eating and body disorders in young Latina women, and the objectification has led to increased sexual and domestic violence. While the stereotype has changed throughout film history, it remains the same. The Latina women are rarely given their chance to shine in the spotlight. They are often object of affection or sex, meant to move the story along, but never the object of real importance to the story. Before Culture, Race, and Media, I would not have been able to identify why these stereotypes are harmful. After Culture, Race, and Media, I am better able to analyze the media I watch and see the effects that stereotypes like these have on my views of the world. Garcia says, the stereotype and the clumping of Latinas into one massive bowl of sameness doused with too much extra spicy hot sauce is the real problem.